Hello everybody and welcome back. In this video, in our series on Docker, we're going to learn about Dockerfile. Throughout this series, we've worked with the Docker CLI. We've pulled down Docker images from the Docker Hub repository, and we've worked with that image. Now that image is immutable. If we go back to the concepts video, the immutability of the container says that the container is what it is, and no matter what changes we make to that container, once we destroy the container, all those changes are gone. So that begs the question, what if we want to install software on our image and we want that to be persistent? Well, what comes into play here is creating our own Docker images that has the software that we want on it already. So when we start that container, it's at the exact moment in time that we want to be able to use the container as we see fit. And then when we destroy it and we start over again, whatever changes we made, we don't really care about because we want that base setup to be what we wanted. So today we're going to do that. So let's begin by talking about the Dockerfile in itself. The Dockerfile is a specific, unique file that the Docker engine looks for when you issue a Docker build at the command line. So at the command line, later on in this video, we're going to issue a Docker build, which is similar to the Docker run that we did before, the Docker logs that we did before. And when we issue that Docker build, the Docker engine is going to look for a specific file called Dockerfile, and it's going to execute all the necessary elements needed to build an image based on the requirements that you have given the Dockerfile. Now, inside the Dockerfile, we have commands and arguments to those commands. And we also have comments that we can comment our Dockerfile so that other people can understand what we're doing. So let's talk about some of the commands. The first command that I want to talk about is from. The from command, followed by the name of the Docker base image that we want to use and its tag, is the first thing that is at the top of all Docker files. So in our case, we'll use Ubuntu as we have been throughout the rest of the series. And we're going to say from Ubuntu, and then the tag, which will be 20.04. What this will do is it will tell Docker that we want to start our process on top of this base Docker image. The next command is run. So the run command, followed by the arguments, that'll be what commands we want to run, will help us to do things like install the software we need, do updates to our image prior to installing our software, doing other commands that we might want to do inside of our Docker container that will maintain immutability inside the container image so that every time we start it up, that's already been executed. We have the argument command, ARG, that will be used when we're building the image only, and it will only persist during that part of the process when we actually issue that Docker build command later on. We have the copy command that will allow us to take static files that we have on our host system and import them into our container so that our image has those files set up and ready to go. And you can think of this in like a web server type environment. You have a full container web server that you're developing. And when you're done doing your development, you copy your HTML directory into your container, and your container is set to start up the Nginx or the Apache web server on startup when the container starts. And all of your information is statically in there in that container that now you can port anywhere you want to run your website. The add command will look exactly the same as the copy command. However, the add command has some extra features that allow you to do things like extract tar files automatically into your image. However, it is recommended that for most use cases that you use the copy command versus the add command. We have a command called command, CMD, that will allow you to execute commands inside your Docker container. Now, we did talk about run executing commands inside your Docker container, but run is used to execute during the build time, while the command is used to execute during the instantiation of your container. Entry point. Now, entry point gets confused with command and also gets confused with run. Now again, we said that run will execute commands during the build process of our container to create our image. Command will run commands that are done at instantiation of our container. And entry point also is run at the instantiation of our container. However, the entry point cannot be overwritten. When you start a container, by default, it starts a shell. Now, if you want to override the default shell with the bash born shell, you can then execute a command at the start of your container for bash that will override the default command of running just a shell. And also, if you have your container start and run a specific command that's maybe starts a banner that says some things when you start up, if you want to skip that, you can execute a different type of command when you actually do the run. Now, since this video is getting a little bit too long, I'm going to end it here. And in the next video, we'll actually create a Dockerfile using a real world example. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.